Alright guys, welcome back to Formula 1 news. The Belgian Grand Prix is this weekend and Max Verstappen may take a slight advantage into it because he has been the first man to get a new taste of what the track is like this time around. The layout is identical in terms of the track itself, but outside of the track and the track limits, things are rather different indeed. Some walls have been changed, but also 4 new gravel traps added, which definitely will make racing rather different this time around. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy, subscribe if you are new as always, I would greatly appreciate it. Plenty to discuss today. First of all, wanted to mention what's going on with Haas quickly because no guarantees as it stands that Mick Schumacher will be their driver next year alongside Kevin Magnussen. Apparently, Günther Steiner even spoke to Daniel Riccardo before the Hungarian Grand Prix a couple of weeks back, saying that, maybe he can be their driver next year. Still expected to switch to Alpine, but, I think a lot of people say it's almost getting to the point of being a 50-50 whether Riccardo will go to the Alpine seat for, of course, Alonso, who's going to Aston Martin because Vettel's retiring. If you guys aren't familiar with the story, Piastri, of course, to McLaren, but even Mick Schumacher has been potentially, tipped to maybe take that Alpine spot as well, and Riccardo could end up at Haas, which obviously would not be ideal for him, but, it's a possibility. Now, apparently they're also considering Nico Hülkenberg, so Haas are definitely not messing around here, right? We saw the Giovinazzi talk a couple of days ago. They're subbing him in, even though he's not a rookie driver, for Mick Schumacher to effectively tell Mick, look, deliver more points or you're off the team, because Ferrari can say all they want about keeping Mick Schumacher around, but Haas effectively have their decision that they can make, and as is described here, Ferrari to have minimal influence on the final decision. Haas will choose their drivers, and look, they're putting Mick in the hot seat to deliver results here in the next 2-3 races, and if he doesn't, his seat may be, well, not there anymore, but maybe he goes to Alpine anyway and gets a bit of an upgrade. Interesting questions going on at Haas, there's no doubt about it. This also has been confirmed because, in fairness, the last race or maybe 2 races, it was Kevin Magnussen with the new upgrades. Now, in fairness, those upgrades didn't really seem to deliver him that much more performance than Mick Schumacher had, but in fairness, Magnussen did have the better car theoretically at the Hungaroring, and now Mick Schumacher will get those for the Belgian Grand Prix. So now they're on level pegging again theoretically in terms of the machinery under them. Then Haas will be like, okay, look, is Mick actually performing at the level of Magnussen? And if he's not, we're going to get someone else in next year. This is also big news with regard to the Sauber F1 team. Rumour has it that Alfa Romeo Sauber is at an end and it's going to be Audi Sauber going forward. I'm not exactly sure when this is going to happen, but apparently they reckon here the announcement could be this weekend, which is pretty interesting because I would have imagined that Audi might be coming through for the new engine regulations for 2026, but maybe it's much sooner than that. So yes, maybe Alfa Romeo, the kind of partnership with Sauber, could be at an end and it's going to be Audi Sauber for next season and beyond. Pretty interesting stuff, and definitely an interesting one for Formula 1. I think a lot of the kind of team principals have said, like, okay, Andretti or whatever, we don't care, but Audi coming in, Porsche coming in, that could be pretty good for Formula 1 as a sport. This also an update on the Alpha Tauri side, the other Alpha team, spelled slightly differently, of course. Liam Lawson, kind of Red Bull Jr., currently in Formula 2, making a name for himself over there. He is going to make his debut in Free Practice 1 this weekend at Spa, replacing Gasly in the Alpha Tauri. Pretty interesting stuff. That's going to be one of their 2 rookie driver spots so far this season. So pretty cool for Liam Lawson. Of course, another F2 driver in consideration right now. Drugovich might be, he was kind of talked about a little bit in terms of a Formula 1 seat, but people talk about Logan Sargent right now as well, with potentially the Williams seat of Nicholas Latifi up for acquisition. Let's talk about this weekend then. Of course, look, finally the Mercedes is looking okay again. They are hoping at least that the technical directive, which may well affect the flexi floors that apparently Red Bull and Ferrari have been using, but people seem to be very split on whether it's going to make any difference at all or whether it's going to save a little bit of time for Mercedes to get back closer to the front runners. George Russell did say that if Mercedes were using the trick that they believe Red Bull and Ferrari are using, then it would cost them 2 to 3 tenths of a second per lap to remove the trick that they were using. So look, we'll see if it makes any difference. By the time Friday free practice comes around, we might have an idea as to where Mercedes stack up compared to the front runners. Of course, a long lap around Spa, so any kind of differences are going to be exaggerated, and also like a huge variation in corner types. So that's why Spa is so good. But we'll see in a second here what the track now looks like. So I looked at this image for you guys yesterday. This is up Eau Rouge into Raidillon onto the Kemmel Straight, and there's been plenty of instances in, mainly in Formula 2 and other series where there's been some serious accidents around here. Makes sense, right? You're going up a hill, there's a curve, it's tough. Now, what this used to do, this wall used to be much closer here to the track. So if you were to go straight on and hit the wall, often often you'd be bouncing across the track onto the other side, and disaster can ensue with other cars coming through. So that's now no longer the case. They've widened this a lot further, and some people look at this and say, okay, it kind of ruins the character. Like, I don't really care so much about that. Like, the track is still the same. The track's still the same as far as I'm concerned. And if it makes it safer, I think that's probably only a good thing. But there are some other changes as well, and mainly to the new gravel traps at the track limit here. Turn 1, 6, 7, and 9 new gravel traps in effect. So this was mentioned yesterday. Now, these are some of the images. This is, I believe, what is turn 9 down into the Poo on turn 10, right? The fast left-hander. And you guys can see here on the right-hand side, there's a new gravel trap. Often, people were trying to run really wide on this exit, as wide as they possibly could. Of course, this year, with the way that the track limits work, with the white line being the track limit, you probably can't really do that anyway. But it is interesting to see the gravel traps are here, because apparently these gravel traps are pretty dangerous, and you certainly don't want to be in them. So just to mention quickly before we look at what Verstappen's been up to, these are the corners at play. So first of all, 2, 3, 4 up, Eau Rouge and Raidillon, those are the corners where it's effectively been widened, and the same apparently at turns 8 and 9, so the track's been widened here to some extent. Well, the track itself hasn't been widened, but the runoff area and the like is maybe a bit more generous now in terms of people hitting the barriers and the like. But also the other corners are pretty more interesting. So 1, 6, 7, and 9. So we'll see turn 1 here in a second. Big gravel trap now at turn 1, and also 6 and 7, where often there is, quite a lot of battles at 6 and 7 after the Kemmel Straight. People can be going side by side through here. So if you push someone off into the gravel, their race could be over. And then turn 9 as well, as we looked at, often a similar boat around turn 8, down, there can be collisions here as well and battles here. And if you go off the track here, you're in the gravel, that could be the end of your race, especially because, rumour has it, these gravel traps have rather sharp stones, as is described right here. And also, as they say, okay, Spa is unchanged, it's still epic, it's still got its challenges, and why the circuit is still so exciting, but drivers will need to pay more attention to track limits, and there's also an increased chance of sharp gravel being dragged onto the surface, which apparently, can cause some tyre blowouts. As actually was mentioned here, I believe, by Eric. He says, Pirelli warns drivers for new challenges and also for sharp stones in the new gravel boxes. There was a lot of flat tyres during 24 hours of Spa last month, so definitely want to keep an eye out for. If indeed there could potentially be punctures and the like, if some of this gravel gets onto the surface, things could get rather interesting, especially because of this new turn 1. So this is the kind of footage here of Max Verstappen getting, the first driver to be out on track here at the new circuit. You can see the number 1 car. This obviously isn't the current spec Red Bull car. This is from a few years ago, but this is him driving down, after turn 1, up Eau Rouge, or up Raidillon, of course. And this, as you can see on the left-hand side here, the runoff is now much wider than it was before. So there's a lot more room for maneuver here, which I think makes this section of the track much safer than it was, especially in the rain and the like. So but anyway, this is the thing that I'm more interested in personally, is this massive, this used to be a runoff area, right? We just, we used to see turn 1 is absolute chaos at Spa, right? Going down to turn 1, it's a tight right-hander, anything can happen here. Cars are flying all over the track, and often they're going off into the runoff area and rejoining the track. If you go off the track here now, you're in the gravel and your race could be done, especially if you're getting punches, because the gravel and the stones are pretty sharp. So this honestly does, I think, change how things behave rather significantly, in that going into turn 1, you can't afford to get pushed wide, and also if you're a driver and you push someone wide, penalties will come as a result, right? We've kind of seen that the way the FIA seems to deal with this from a stewarding perspective is, really stewarding decisions on driver penalties should really come down to the intention as opposed to the consequence. But as it tends to be, if you happen to push someone off the track and there's no gravel there and they're okay and they continue their race, they don't really seem to penalise that so much. But if you push someone off track into the gravel, as for example turn 4 in Austria, then all of a sudden they will then deliver these consequences. So we could well see here, if people get forced off the track into this gravel, we will see penalties come into play, I'm sure of it. So definitely makes things rather interesting for this weekend. And yes, does this give Verstappen any advantage? Of course, the first man out on track. Yes, everyone knows Spa and how it drives, but he's got a feel for, okay, how might racing be on this track with the new gravel traps, but also with the new runoff areas? Where can maybe extra risk be taken at this type of stuff that maybe the other drivers, if they haven't got the chance to do this yet, will maybe not get a chance to do until it comes around, of course, to free practice in a couple of days' time. So definitely intrigued your perspective on that one in the comment section below. This also to mention though, because of course a big question has been raised, will Spa be removed from the calendar? It's a fantastic track, of course, but might not be here too much longer because of logistical issues, getting people to the venue, because it's so far out in the countryside, even getting people there. I think there used to be a train line, but there's not one anymore. And there's plenty of issues like that. And often, like, the environmental cost, I suppose, of getting people to the venue has been a bit of a question mark. Yes, the track is fantastic, but it carries its other risks, especially when there's other potential markets out there with more money to spend effectively. Now, I mean, that's the thing. I think most drivers also always are going to have Spa in their top 3 tracks. Like, even Max Verstappen has made it very clear that, it's a historic circuit. It shouldn't go anywhere. He'd be very, very sad, of course, if it does get removed. Christian Horner has said a similar thing, that these kind of classic tracks should be, should be ring-fenced effectively. Monza, Silverstone, Spa, the big historic ones, they should stay. Regardless of the situation, they should be protected. Interestingly, doesn't mention Monaco, but I suppose that's a topic of discussion for another day. But yeah, I'm in agreement with this. I think that, for Formula 1, it would be sad to lose any of these circuits, of course, but it might be a possibility. Rumour currently has it that because the South African Grand Prix in Kyalami is not coming in yet next season, and instead it's going to have to wait for 2024 to be kind of confirmed as an FIA, like at F1 standard circuit again or whatever, then, for that to happen, I think next year, the rumour has it that Spa is still going to be there, but maybe like next season's race around Spa could be the last one for quite some time with the present rumours. But even as Norris says, same with like Monza and stuff, I feel it should always be around for as long as Formula 1 is around. So I think a lot of people kind of agree with this sentiment, but yes, I mean, this could be the last Spa Grand Prix for the near future, certainly, and it will be done with a rather different layout in terms of track limit and the like. Definitely tweet your thoughts in the comment section below. Could this weekend be a better one for Sainz? As we can see here, his point scores since 2015 not been so good. Plenty of DNS, plenty of DNSs. He got 1 point in 2017 at P10. He was also P10 in 2021 for half a point, given the way that race finished. P11 in 2018. Maybe he can finally put something else on the board this time in that Ferrari. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new as always. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.